VU Library. Primetime at the VU Library is a collaboration of the Friends of the VU Library and many different offices on campus with the mission of encouraging lifelong learning beyond the classroom to the entire Buffalo community. Here's an announcement for students. If you're interested in working on a paper or project that requires significant library research, consider applying for the $250 library research prize. The deadline is February 15th. There's information on the library website. The link is on a slip by the refreshment table, or you can ask the librarian for more information. Next week, there's a lot going on at Primetime at the library. On Tuesday, November 1st, a faculty excellence award winner for service, Mikul of Communication Studies, presents Learning While Serving, a different way to think of service learning. And on Thursday, November 3rd, Chad White from the Physics Department will be joining us. Today, we have a presentation by Sarah Mikul. She will be sharing things she learned in her skills in Northern Ireland.
So as she said, I'm Sarah Mikul. I'm a senior here. I have 3 majors: youth ministry, biblical theological studies, and reconciliation. And the reason why I went to Ireland is basically because I had swine flu in sophomore year. I decided when I was quarantined for a week, I'm an extrovert, and so I was going crazy. And so I used that as a way to be useful, and I just figured out how many majors I could get at one time. And decided on those 3 and tried to figure it all out. And the youth ministry program was going to Ireland and taking this J-term trip there. And I really wanted to go. And I didn't really know why, besides there are all my friends going, and Ireland has castles, and I wanted to see castles. And so I decided for that. And then for reconciliation, you have to study abroad for a whole semester. And so the only way that it would work out is if I stayed in Ireland. But Bethel doesn't have a program. And so then I had to figure out which program to do and all this. And I ended up studying abroad in Northern Ireland in Derry/Londonderry. So going into it, I was really naive and didn't really know anything. I didn't realize that Northern Ireland was a different country than the Republic of Ireland. I didn't realize any of the issues that were going on, and I just kind of wanted to go to Ireland. And so I thought I would give a little history for those who didn't know everything that's going on. So this is Northern Ireland right here. It's part of the United Kingdom, and so there is Londonderry. That's where I studied. And so my journey started to begin in political theology. Actually, I took it as a junior, sophomore. And I started learning about violence and the theology of violence and what it meant for Christians to be in conflict and killing each other. And it was just really hard because the history of Ireland is that Ireland was given to Britain by the Pope, and so then it became part of the United Kingdom. And after a while, they didn't want to be a part of that anymore, and so there was Revolutionary War, and the Republic of Ireland became free, and Northern Ireland stayed part of the United Kingdom, and that was because of voting. And some say that the voting was bad, that there's this term called gerrymandering, that because there's a higher concentration of British or Protestants, as it later became known in Northern Ireland, that's why that stayed there. And so then that brings it up to more present day. There was the Troubles, and this was a time in Northern Ireland where there's 2 different sides. There was the people who wanted to be part of the Republic, and then there's the people who wanted to still be part of the United Kingdom. And it divided itself between Catholics and Protestants. So Catholics wanted to have a republic, and Protestants wanted to still be part of Great Britain. And so different parties became. There became the IRA, the Irish Republic Army. There was Ulster Defence Association and Ulster Volunteer Force. Those both wanted to still be part of Great Britain. And so the conflict just erupted. I mean, there's bombings, there was killings of people, there it was just such dehumanization. And so I started learning about this, and I didn't know the extent of the interactions that I would have until I got there. So I started off, I flew over by myself because the J term from Bethel, they flew into Dublin, but because I was studying abroad, I had to fly into Belfast because I had to get my visa. And if I would have flown into Dublin, I wouldn't have been legal in the country and would have had all this stuff. So I flew into Belfast by myself and figured out my way down to Dublin. I never rode on a public bus before, and so the first time I did it, I was in Ireland, and I was like, I don't understand any of your accents, and I'm just going to try this. And so for the J-term trip, we just, we started off in Dublin and learned about the history more of the first part, and then we went up to Belfast. And I know a group already talked about the J-term trip, so I'm not going to talk as much about that. But there's one thing I want to highlight is the difference in atmospheres between Dublin and Belfast. I don't know if other people noticed this on the trip, but in Dublin there just seemed more of a freedom about it. And when you went to Belfast, there was this heaviness. And even though I love Belfast, I love that city so much, there's just this heaviness, this I don't know, it's this oppression over the city because they're still involved in a conflict. One thing someone told me was that even though there's no war, you live in a wartime mindset. And I had no idea what that was like until 8 months later, and even now, I'm still trying to figure out what I went through during that. So in Belfast, these are just a couple of the murals that are around everywhere. So walking into a town or driving into a town, you get this huge mural, and people drive by this every day. Catholics drive by this every day, and the loyalists were the ones who wanted to be part of Great Britain still. And so, I mean, there's pictures of shootings, and the one right over there, it says, Catholicism is more than religion. It is a political power. Therefore, I'm led to believe that there will be no peace in Ireland until the Catholic Church is crushed. That's just the mindset that people have. It's that you have to crush the other and you have to push them down in order for there to be peace. Yeah. And so that's just how people live, and that's just what they are. That's the way they see the other person. And then after Belfast, I went up to Derry, or / Londonderry. Londonderry if you're Protestant, Derry if you're Catholic. And the first night I met these two guys, and one of them was a Protestant and one of them was a Catholic. And they're like, I never knew a Protestant or I never knew a Catholic until I met this other guy. And they were 20 years old in college. College is the first time you have interaction with someone other than Protestant or Catholic. And so they told me that when they see someone walking down the street, they're able to tell if they're a Protestant or a Catholic. And I was just no, there is no way you can tell if they're the difference between the two just by looking at someone. And they're like, okay, well, if it's not looking at someone, then within the first sentence or two, you can figure it out. And I just did not believe it. I was like, that is so ridiculous. There's not that much separation. No way. By the end, within 5 minutes, I could tell you if someone was Protestant or Catholic, because you had to in order to survive, in order to know what to say. I had experiences where I got yelled at, just full out yelled at for saying Derry instead of Londonderry. And so everything you do is through this mindset of what is this other person going to take it as. And so it's not all bad. It's a beautiful place. I love it. It's my heart. So I went to, this is my college. I only have a picture of it at night. Kind of looks like Hogwarts. That's what we called it. So this is just a main building, the oldest building. And so I went to school here. The academic system is also really different. I only had 3 classes. That's as many as you could take. They were once a week for only 3 hours each. And so you'd have a 2-hour lecture and a 1-hour seminar. And you had no assignments. You only did 1 essay for the whole thing. But you were required to read articles and discuss it in class, but it wasn't quizzes or anything like that. So I had a lot of time to rest, which is not something I normally do. And so that was my school. And then this is just to show a little bit of the town. So I'm pointing. This is Derry and the bog side. And so we're on these walls. And so this is all the bog side where most of the Catholics live. And I'll point right now. That is the hills of Donegal. That's Ireland. So that's like the distance between Ireland and Northern Ireland. And there's my school I just pointed to. So the next thing I'm going to show here is that down here, you can't really see it, but there's these flags. And they are the flag of the Republic. They're the tricolor. And so that marks the territory. The streets, instead of like just plain pavement, they'll be red, white, and blue if it's a Protestant area, or the green, orange, and white if it's the Unionists. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. And so it was just like, you knew where you were, and if you weren't part of that, you have to be careful. So this video is really long. That was part of my town. That was half of it. That's the bog side. That's the Catholic side. And then there's a river that went through, and then on the other side is the water side, which was the Protestant side. And so it was really interesting. I walked along the river all the time, and it was just like crazy to think about the separation between the two. One of the interesting experiences that I had was I went on the Bloody Sunday March. If you don't know what Bloody Sunday is 39 years ago on January 30th, they did a peace march, the Catholics did, along the bog side. And so all those streets, like I walked along there, and we just walked in peace, and they did the same thing. We took the same route as they did 39 years ago. But 39 years ago, when they got to a certain point, the British soldiers came and started shooting and killed 14 people. And I just have to say, I realized that I didn't process a lot of this stuff. And so last night, like, my roommates, they were so gracious. Like, I was just crying because I realized all the stuff that I went through and didn't process. And so it's still super emotional for me. So I walked these streets of people who did the same thing, but they were killed for it. And at the end of the march, we got to like hear from victims' families, the people who were there, of people who like saw the shootings, who were standing right next to the person who was shot, but they didn't get shot. But it was like a joyous occasion because it's going to be the last Bloody Sunday March that they had, because last, let's see, I don't remember what day it is, they declared that the people who were killed were innocent and that they didn't do anything. Because there was stories that like the marchers like threw rocks at the policemen and that's why they fired, but they declared that there was no reason for them to shoot. But it didn't, the big thing that they were talking about was that there wasn't justice, because even though that they declared the victims innocent, they didn't declare the people who killed them guilty. And so just the idea of what justice even is. And so when we were walking, I think I have another video to this is what was played the whole time. These are marching band. And when I was there, I walked behind these flags, and those are like the multitudes of people that were there. I walked behind a Sinn Féin flag, which now looking back might not have been the best idea, because Sinn Féin is one of the most violent parties. And I was walking behind one of their flags, and like, I didn't have a stand. I tried to be non-biased about the conflict, because it's just really hard. I had friends that were affected on both sides. So yeah, I was walking behind this flag, and I was just like, what? This is crazy. Like, this is insane. And then, like, we get to the final place, which is here. This is like the city hall area. So there's just people everywhere. And there's pictures of the people who had died. And then all of a sudden, Jerry Adams comes up onto the stage. yeah, he's head of the organization that like killed people. And I listened to him, and what he was talking about, I agreed. Like he was the one who talked about the justice. And this is like, I'm so glad I took this clip. This is him speaking in Gaelic. This is how it started. Yeah, so that's just that one. And I have no idea what he said. I have no idea what that means. But he was just talking about the idea of justice, what it means for someone to be fully like liberated, what it means for peace to come. And a lot of change has happened. A lot of change has happened in the different parties because they generally want peace. But the way that they do it, they don't know how to get it. The only time that I really saw like peaceful interactions was that when it was like an interaction between the Protestants and the Catholics, when they were fighting for a common cause. And so it's just like such like division. But the most like moving experience that I had during this day was we all came together and we sang the song "We Shall Overcome." So all these people standing here who their families were killed in this Bloody Sunday March, like we were all singing together, "We shall overcome." And not just overcome like this conflict, but overcome like this unity and violence, and like overcome these trials that we have by standing together. And even though that was like a Catholic thing, like I saw it as like this is what the cry of Ireland needs to be. And so I wrote on my thing, I had a blog that lasted for about a couple weeks because it just couldn't do it. It was hard to put everything down, but it says, when I was talking about the tens of thousands of people singing together, "We shall overcome," it is a moment that still brings chills to my spine. Unity will happen, peace will come to this earth, we shall overcome, the kingdom of God is here. And I truly, truly believe that that is true, that we can. But as you can see, like I had a hard time in there. Like this is heavy stuff to be just taking in, and like I was by myself. I didn't have Bethel students there. There's 6 other American young women that I was close with, but none of them were Christian. I didn't go to a Christian school. I had no community, and it was really hard. I went through a hard time adjusting, trying to figure out how much do I interact with home, how much do I stay here, how much do I like study, like how much do I like spend time in my room just studying because I want to be experiencing it. So I just there was like a month into it or so, I was just done. I was ready to go home. I didn't tell many people this. I didn't tell my mom or anything because I knew she'd be like, "Get on the plane, come home." But I just like was so done. I just wanted to be. I was sick of struggling. I was sick of having no community. I wanted people to talk to, be like, "Hey, I love Jesus, and I don't like. I'm not trying to kill you because I have a different view than you." I just wanted to be able to have a community where I could share like my heart, because my heart belongs to the Lord, and like I didn't know anyone who had that similar view as me. And so it was like the time when I was just the lowest, and I was doing my laundry, and it wasn't done yet. So I was sitting on top of the laundry machine, and I was just like, "Oh, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I love this, but I just don't want to be here." And I was like, "God, send someone in that door, or I am just gonna like leave. Like, I just don't want this." And in walked this girl named Rachel. Like, seriously, after I prayed that, this woman named Rachel came in, and I had met her a couple of weeks before that, and she was a Christian, but we didn't get each other's numbers or anything. And she came in and she saw me, and she was like, "I've been looking for you for 2 weeks. Like, where have you been?" And so we started talking, and then the next day she brings me to this thing called Christian Union, which was just a group of Christians on campus. And then the day after that, she brought me to this place called the Sanctuary. It's my church, it's my family, it's the place that I love. It's this little tiny church. When I went there, the first time I went, I think there's 15 people there. I drove an hour and a half north to I didn't know where. Like, I was just like, okay, I'll get in a car with strangers and go to this church. Sounds great. And we show up at a pub, and I was like, oh, okay. They're like, oh, it's in the back, don't worry. So we walk into the back, and there's these people that I don't know, and I was like, okay, I can do this. This will be good. Like, I was just so longing for community. I was like, oh, like, God, thank you for giving this to me. And that night, my world got rocked. Like, I am never going to be the same because of that one night. Like, the Holy Spirit just, like, came and spoke to me and was just like, this is truth. This is who I am. This is who you are. And this is why I placed you here. And, like, it wasn't really clear, but it was just, like, I knew. Like, I had a sense of peace, and I was like, okay, this is crazy. But then a woman came up to me and prophesied over me, and I freaked out. And I was like, okay, just kidding. This isn't the place I want to be. like, you're kind of a freak. I don't really want to be part of this. But through that night, there was an impression in my heart that I was supposed to be there past May. And I just was really confused. I was like, I'm going back to America. There's no way I can stay here. I have my internship with Antioch away this summer. I can't just, like, get up and leave. But that's what was on my heart. And I was like, okay, like, I don't know. And then after that service, we got in the cars, and my friends were like, let's go to the mountains. And I was just like, what? Like, mountain? Okay. It was midnight. So we drive to this mountain, and this just explains my friends there so well. So we're driving to this mountain, like, we got lost on the way there, and, like, so we get up to this mountain, and all of a sudden a snowstorm comes. It doesn't snow in Ireland. Like, really, it doesn't at all, especially at this time of the year. So this giant snowstorm came, and they don't know how to drive in the snow. Like, it was crazy, and I was terrified, and I was just like, okay, like, just go slowly, okay. So we finally get to the top of this mountain, and the way it was like there's a parking lot, but for some reason there was a lake on top of the mountain. I don't understand how that works, but there's a lake up there. And so it's just this snowstorm, but the skies were clear, and you could see the stars perfectly. So it was like snowing, I could see the stars, there's a lake with the moonlight, and then my friends are like, let's put on some Irish music and dance. And I was okay, yeah, let's do this. And I just went with it, and it was like my favorite night of my whole life. We just danced under the stars in a snowstorm. I was wearing flip-flops, and that's just the way my friendship started there. I got to have so many amazing experiences. I don't want to show that one. Go for it. So you don't need the sound of this because I'm just being weird. So I'm talking about where I'm at. This is my favorite place in the whole world. It's called Castle Rock, and so that's good enough. There's like giant cliffs. It gets like messed up at this, but it's my favorite place in the whole world. There's just cliffs, and then behind you there's a temple, and then behind the temple there's a castle. So like within the space of a little bit, there's the ocean, cliffs, castle, and temple. And that was my God time. That's just like where I go all the time. And so I was having all these amazing experiences. I was like coming here with my friends from school, and then I would be like going to church, and I had two lives basically. I had like my school life and like all of that, and then I had my church life, and they didn't really intermix. And I just was really convicted by that. I started realizing idols that I had in my life, of relationships that I had back here that I hadn't like dealt with. And God was really working in my heart, and it was mainly through these people at my church. And I was just being called to give up things, and I didn't want to do it. And finally, I just like broke down. I was like, okay, God, obviously you're wanting to do this, and you are using Ireland to change me. So let's just go with this, because I have this tendency of fighting things and then just going with it. So this is another one. And so the meantime, while God's working on all this stuff, like I'm still involved in this conflict. And so it's through these people that I am being changed, but it's also through them that like I'm understanding Ireland, because one of my best friends there, Sophie, she is like super duper loyalist. Her family is British to the core, like Protestant, like gung-ho, because her uncle was a policeman. And I think it was the IRA, decided that they wanted to kill him. And so they went and waited outside her house and killed the wrong man, killed her other uncle instead. And so, like, it was just so hard to hear her story and just to, like, hear that. But then also realizing that, like, the people in the Bloody Sunday March, like, they were part of that. And so I was standing amidst people, like, crying out for unity with them. And, like, they were like the side that had killed my friend's uncle. And so I remember going to their house, Sophie's house, and, like, she prepped me on the way in, like, before we got out of the car. She's like, remember, Protestant filter. I was like, okay, I can do that. Like, I got this down. And I'd been there for, like, 4 months. And I went in, and one of the first things I said was I lived in Barrie. And that's the time that I just got yelled at by her dad. And he told me that the last person that said that is buried in the backyard. And he wasn't being serious. I don't think he's ever killed anyone. But he was serious on, like, the hurt. Because it wasn't like I was basically just bringing up everything that had happened when his brother was killed. Another thing that I saw was I was on those, the walls that the video showed. And I was standing up there, like, in the same spot, and I was watching the sunset, because there's amazing sunsets. And all of a sudden, there was a group of, like, boys down there, boys and girls. They're probably 10, 15, that's the age. And I have such a passion for children, so I was just, like, watching them, like, oh, they're so great, look at them playing the games. And then my friends were like, do you hear the songs they're singing? And so I listened for a little bit, and they were saying words that I didn't even, like, know existed, like such vulgarity towards Protestants, because we were on the wrong side. And so they were saying things about these people in songs, and they were 10 years old. And these songs that they were singing, like, they knew by heart. And one of my friends was a Catholic that was there, and he's like, yeah, I knew those songs, like, growing up. And I was just like, wow, this is intense. And then it got worse. These couple of really drunk men started walking by. And one of them was in bad shape. He was just, as they would say, he was totally pissed. That's how they stay drunk. That's just why. And so he was walking by, and they started yelling, like, are you a Protestant? And, like, using all this language. And he's just like, whatever, like, don't talk to me. And so they got mad, and they started to push him. And because he was so drunk, he would just, like, fall over. And as soon as he was on the ground, they'd start kicking him and yelling these, like, horrible things. And these were 10-year-olds. And then the man would chase him, but he was so drunk he would start, like, falling down. And then they started throwing bottles and dirt at him and just, like, saying these horrible things. And it lasted for so long, and to the point where I had to leave because I just couldn't handle it anymore. And I've processed a lot of the spiritual stuff that's happened, but not a lot of the conflict, because that's it's something that I can distance myself from. I can come back here and not think about it every day. But, like, that's a choice, and I shouldn't choose that because I lived it. Yeah, sorry, I'm just going back and forth between, like, my church and the conflict and everything, because they are so, those two things are the biggest thing. And it was intermixed, because I had my pastor, he was British, he had a British accent. He moved over only a couple years ago. And so, and we lived in, he lived in, like, a Protestant town called Balmoney. And so, me and him would go to different events. And so he would come to Derry, Londonderry, and I remember him the first time we were there. We were in the car, and he's like, when I step out of this car, I'm not going to say a single word till we get in the building. And I just looked at him like, what? Because, again, I just wasn't paying attention to what was happening. And he's like, there, I have a British accent, and I'm in Derry, and we could get mugged if I say a word. And I just was like, this is the town I've lived in for so long. What do you mean you can't even speak in it? Like, you can't speak in where I live. And he's just like, no, like, it's better if I don't. So it's just was so intermixed, and talking to them, it was really interesting. And it's also interesting because my church was in the back of a UDA pub. The pub that we were in was called the Bush, and it's under the Ulster Defense Association. So we were in that, and we had a Protestant, or a British pastor, and so it's just like, we were target, like, for anything, and so they actually moved it a month ago to a different building because I think they're getting threats on our church. And so all of this was happening, and I was learning about who I was and what it means to be a person and what it means to love someone, and like all of this. And I was really convicted one time, it was right before Easter, to fast for 3 days. And so I did. And I was just really trying to understand what it means to love God in a self-sacrificial way, because I could see how selfishness just leads to this road of destruction. And so at the end of the 3 days, I just was so overwhelmed with how selfish I was, and how even my fact of being a Christian was part of my selfishness, because I wanted to be the perfect Christian, and that I hadn't died to myself like I was supposed to. And so the most important, one of the best days of my life is, oh, I didn't even know I had that slide. All right, I got baptized, rebaptized. I was baptized when I was younger, but I didn't know what it meant, or didn't really know what being Christian meant. And so I got baptized in the Irish Sea in April, and it was freezing. And this is part of the family that I got baptized with. These people have changed my life, and that's Castle Rock, so that's the temple that I was talking about. And so when I went down, when I came up, you can see me throwing my arms up in the air, and all I could yell, I felt like Braveheart, all I could yell was freedom. I just was freedom! Out of the Irish Sea comes me. And it was just those glorious moments, because that was also a changing point for me to really dive into who God has created me to be, and what that means to be in Ireland and to be me. So by this point, I had decided that I was going to stay. I stayed in Ireland for 8 months. I just got back 2 months ago, and so I'm still really processing it. And so I started an internship at I lived with the raccoon. Sorry, this is not on here. This is Oi. So I started my internship. And this is my little raccoon friend named Oi. And I lived in basically a zoo. I had lemurs and skunks. I had 6 skunks and a raccoon, and a flying squirrel, and tarantulas and snakes, and possum, and everything. And it's not like they were in cages. The skunks were just in a bedroom in the house. That raccoon, he slept with me. We were best friends. And so I decided to stay, and then obviously I found a place to live. I lived with this man named Casey, and he goes to my church, but I didn't know where I was living before 2 weeks before I had to move out of my school. And so it was just trusting God. And so I lived with all these kinds of animals, and then across the street was where my pastor lived, and that's where I worked. And so this summer, I lived in Ballymoney, which is this tiny little town, and I worked at the church. And so I was in charge of hospitality. So you have tea and coffee with everything in Ireland. I had it probably 5 times a day at least. And so tea and biscuits and just everything. So I was in charge of that. And people would complain because I don't know how to make tea correctly, but I'm learning. And so I was in charge of that, but I was also in charge of greeting every person that came in. I was also in charge of, not in charge of, but I did prayer and prophecy over people during the service. I would meet one-on-one with people anywhere from the age of 14 all the way to a 50-year-old. And I would just sit down and talk to them and live life and learn what community was. And so I was basically the personal assistant to Jason Holbeach, which was the pastor and the co-founder of this charity called the Mission Worldwide. And so this summer I was doing the church thing, but I was also working with this charity that is setting up rehabilitation centers for sex trafficked children. And so we were working on raising money for our first center in Cambodia. And so I spent the summer, I called every single grocery store in Northern Ireland, every one, and talked to them, and they were so confused why an American was calling them, asking for them to set up set up time to collect money at their store. But I just had to explain it all, and so then I would also go to the store, and I would take a bucket, and I would just stand there, and you weren't allowed to say anything. And the charity was a charity, it wasn't a ministry, because if it was a ministry, you excluded half of the country. And people just religion is just bad there. When I came in, I couldn't tell them that I was working at a church, because that would have been I would have been interrogated, and it was pretty intense. And so I'd stand with this bucket, and I couldn't say a word to these people, and I had to wait to see if they would talk to me or if they would put money in. And so I would do that for like 12 hours a day sometimes. And it was an interesting way just to interact with the culture and to see people's reactions when I opened my mouth and spoke, because they don't expect an American to be there, especially collecting money. Like, they just didn't get that. And so I did everything this summer, from doing that to 1 week or 2 weeks my friends were gone. And so I house sat and took care of their chickens. Like, I had the craziest life, and it was the best life. And so that's a picture of my church. They moved, but you can't really see it. It's mainly just my face. But if you block that out, it's just a pub. And these are my friends. These are the people who have impacted me the most over there. And yeah, I just don't even know how to talk about it, because it's so life-changing. And so what I thought I would do is, because the summer was basically the staples of what it was, I already told you, but I want to talk about how I've been changed. I only have 5 minutes, so this is going to be really fast. But I was changed in my language. I started saying, do you want to go for a cuppa? That means a cup of tea. Or do you want to go get tea? That means you're going to get dinner. It doesn't make sense, but that's how it is. You say, what's the crack? That's why that was the title of the thing, because that's meaning, what do you want to do? What's happening? Where's the scene at? I even had an accent. It's gone now, but I'd had one. And, that part was changed. My spirituality was changed. God just broke into my life, and, he's okay, these are the things that you're believing about yourself. That's a lie. Put that out of your mind. And this is who you are. You're a beloved princess of God. And it was these people who, were Sarah, your views about yourself are wrong. You have these unhealthy tendencies. This is where you're excelling. These are, what maybe your gifts are, and would pray over me. And just, we're so great. And so I just started getting a fuller understanding of who I was. And I am changing my plans for the future, because when I was there, I realized that I have a heart for third world countries and for the nations, not just third world countries, but for the nations. And so I'm going back. I'm going back in June, and I'm going to move there, and I'm going to live there. And from there, I'm going to go out to countries and set up orphanages and set up rehabilitation centers. And I have been changed in, I think, almost every single way. My heart's the same. Whoops, microphone. My heart's the same, but I have been changed. And it's just the intermix of everything. The way that I presented this with going back and forth and all that stuff is because that's how confusing it is when you're living there. The conflict is so confusing. The deeper you go into it, the more you don't understand it. And so, I think I'm still a product of that. I get really confused about stuff a lot. But, yeah, so now I'm back. Now I'm processing. And I just started that process, I think, last night. I haven't let myself process it. And so I think that's like everything that I had to say. This is the last picture. This is a picture that's really impacted me. It's a picture from a ministry school in Pemba, Mozambique, that the ministry that I was working with is directly associated with. And it's just a picture of open hands. And that's like what I just want to hold everything with, because like all of my experiences, I just like, I'm like, God, like take what you want, like do what you want, move in how you want. Like I don't want to be in the way of you. So there's like 3 minutes left. I wanted to have question time. So there's like 3 minutes. Does anyone have questions? That was so fast. I talked fast. But, about anything? Okay. Well, I just would love to end in prayer. And then pray us in bed. Father God, I just thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share the testimony of your glory and just what you have done in my life. And Lord, I just pray that you bless each one that is sitting here. Lord, that you will just reign in our lives, and that we will understand more and more what it means to be a follower of you. Lord, just transform our lives. Let us have open hands in front of you. Do what you will. In Jesus' name, amen.